Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us this Thursday. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. It's a development plan that proponents say could boost the entire economy for Billings and the state of Montana for decades to come.
Today, supporters and city tourism leaders pitched the perks of One Big Sky District to Yellowstone County commissioners.
Their message was clear. Competition in Billings is good. At a recent One Big Sky Center information meeting, County Commissioner John Ostland expressed concern that the convention center component proposed in One Big Sky District could create unhealthy competition for Metro Park. Today, Steve Arviskow and others with Big Sky Economic Development presented the vision, its benefits, and how it would be funded.
They believe Billings is falling behind in attracting tourism dollars and visitors for a city of its size, even citing sold-out weeks last year in Billings for all concert venues in town. Well, today, after hearing the proposal, Ostland says he still needs to know more about the project.
Of course, running an event center like Metro Park, we have some questions about what competition will do, and we've heard some of the input that they think that can complement each other. I think in some cases it can. In other cases it likely will be competitive.
Next Monday, the Billings City Council will vote on the One Big Sky development plan.
Well, Montana lawmakers need to buy in to move forward with the One Big Sky development project. Supporters call it the game changer for the future of Billings. This would be a huge project that would begin with private financial investment, but also require a giant matching investment from the city and the state. I talked to one state lawmaker who says he's working on drafting a bill right now that he hopes will get looked at this legislative session.
A very, very unique concept. I mean, you talk about out of the box. It's fascinating.
State Senator Roger Webb says he's excited about what One Big Sky could mean, not just for Billings, but for all of Montana.
We could sit there and grow our general fund from this to this, literally overnight. It has a lot of potential. It's a very powerful tool. It's just, we're trying to work out the kinks in the armor right now.
Those kinks include trying to find a creative way for the state to pay for what would be its share of the match with the private sector.
We're having an issue on the state side of finding a way to implement it, because it actually requires a $125 million statutory appropriation. We don't have $125 million bucks. But remember, it's payable over 30 years. So you're talking aggregated of $4 million a year, which that's doable.
And whether lawmakers across the rest of the state would be willing to sign off on paying for a project based in Billings also remains to be seen.
It's a complicated bill. It's going to catch some people by surprise. I'm just running it up the flagpole with some folks that I want their opinions on it. But at the same time, it's almost a well-kept secret.
Well, Senator Webb told me that if they can modify the accounting side of it from the state's perspective, that the bill on one state funding should be considered this session. But they're still trying to work all that out, and they don't have a lot of time to do that.
A recommendation on the future name of Metro Park will head to Yellowstone County Commissioners Tuesday, and a steering committee has selected First Interstate Bank as the front runner. Rimrock Auto decided not to renew its contract in May of 2019. Now, the proposals are coming from First Interstate Bank and Ultra Graphics, both based in Billings. First Interstate is proposing a 5-year deal for $875,000, and Ultra Graphics has set forth a proposal for 10 years at $1.2 million. The Yellowstone County Commissioners put out a request for proposals to the public back in November. The commissioners will vote Tuesday.
Players and fans help remember fallen veterans tonight at Rockies men's and women's games against Carroll.
The Rocky basketball teams played for veterans at Military Appreciation Night. The U.S. Navy also held a swearing-in ceremony.
The men wore special jerseys in honor of veterans who died after getting post-traumatic stress disorder. The women wore jerseys to honor veterans killed in action.
I've spent most of the day today pretty much a hot mess, just trying to make sure I can mentally consume it all and Be strong, 23. He was a big Michael Jordan fan. Austin Payne.
Number 5, it's Isaac Martell. Tonight is huge. Just giving recognition actually to all veterans who may have an issue.
It was Marissa Van Atta. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to play tonight, but she was wearing number 22. Especially for, non-veterans, the people in the audience that are non-veterans, to see that, their students or their children are playing in memory of these guys. It really is a big deal for us and makes us really appreciative of what they're doing. So.
Well, the two relatives of fallen veterans that we interviewed say that they want everyone to know that there is help for veterans with PTSD.
Turning to weather, Bob, a few more snowflakes on the ground tonight.
Yeah, most of the big stuff, though, a little bit farther north. Let me show it to you on the Doppler radar. Here it is. You'll notice all up there by the High Line, that's where most of the big snow is falling up there tonight. Now, back here a little closer to home, you need to use caution while traveling tonight because we got some fog and we got some areas of light snow. Visibility is being reduced to about a quarter mile or less. Look for slick roads on your morning commute. And this is for all of southern Montana and also north central Wyoming. So here's some tips. Slow down, increase your following distance, and also use your low beam headlights tonight. Plus, one other thing to talk about, this is our threat board. You'll notice that area in purple, that's our winter weather advisory. A lot of snowfall, various amounts of snowfall around there. Stays with us through tomorrow. Also, we have an avalanche watch and an avalanche warning out in the west. The little layers there are starting to get pretty unstable, so you need to be careful if you'll be out in the back country because you could cause an avalanche. Our rest of our weekend forecast, that's coming up in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks, Bob. President Trump denied House Speaker Nancy Pelosi use of a military plane and postponed her imminent trip abroad one day after she asked him to postpone his State of the Union address. Now, they both used the partial government shutdown as the reason. Natalie Brand has the latest.
One day after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent President Trump a letter asking him to postpone his State of the Union address until the shutdown stalemate ends, the president fired back with his own letter. He told the House Speaker her trip to Belgium and Afghanistan aboard a military jet was postponed because, quote, it would be better if you were in Washington negotiating with me to end the shutdown. President Trump called the trip a public relations event and suggested Pelosi could fly commercial.
Having been to Afghanistan, I can tell you it's not a political trip. It's a dangerous one.
The White House published the letter less than an hour before Speaker Pelosi and several lawmakers were set to depart. California Democrat Adam Schiff was part of the delegation.
It certainly sounds like it was another impetuous act of a president.
But as the shutdown reached day 27, Republicans stood by the president.
She has been clear she will do nothing to fund the border. I think she ought to stay here until it gets done.
Earlier at the Pentagon, President Trump focused blame on Speaker Pelosi.
While many Democrats in the House and Senate would like to make a deal, Speaker Pelosi will not let them negotiate. The party has been hijacked by the open borders fringe within the party.
What negotiating table are we not at?
Late Thursday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said in a statement that due to the shutdown, the president has canceled his delegation's trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Vice President Pence and senior White House advisor Jared Kushner met with Senate Majority Leader McConnell tonight on Capitol Hill. McConnell told reporters, "We are still discussing the situation."
Well, tribes from across the country are coming together in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Their mission, the Indigenous Peoples March. About 10,000 people are expected to rally, starting at the Building of Interior Affairs and walking to Lincoln Memorial. The idea of the all-day march is to bring awareness to injustices affecting Indigenous people around the world, including genocide and human trafficking. A Northern Cheyenne member is one of the speakers, and her focus is helping Native Americans vote.
My passion is trying to empower the Indigenous people to get out and vote. We could have a monumental impact on what happens. I am with my tribal companion. We are both over the moon excited about being here, representing our nation, seeing other nations here as well. It's very exciting and very historic for us.
Crow Tribal member and hip-hop artist Superman is among the entertainers scheduled for the march. 2 other marches will happen in Washington this week. The March for Life is also on Friday.
And for the 3rd straight year, the Women's March will take place in several cities this Saturday.
Organizers say they are resisting Trump administration policies in building power. But as Alex Wagner explains, this year's event will be different.
Millions made history at the first women's marches across the country in 2017. 1 million rallied in D.C. alone. But this year, Washington organizers are expecting far fewer in attendance, around 10,000. Several factors have seemingly contributed to lower enthusiasm: weather conditions, a lack of funding, and controversy.
I go into a lot of difficult spaces.
Women's March co-president Tamika Mallory appeared on The View this week, defending her association with Louis Farrakhan, top minister in the Nation of Islam, an organization designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center because of the racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-LGBT rhetoric of its leaders. Mallory posted this photo with Farrakhan on his birthday in 2017, calling him the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Just because you go into a space with someone does not mean that you agree with everything that they say.
But let me push back a little bit. Why call him the greatest of all time?
I didn't call him the greatest of all time because of his rhetoric. I called him the greatest of all time because of what he's done in Black communities.
Certain chapters have canceled their plans for this year, citing concern over Mallory's support for Farrakhan and the group's refusal to remove her from its board. Organizer Linda Sarsour.
The Women's March and the leadership of the Women's March unequivocally rejects anti-Semitism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia.
Sarsour understands the current controversy to be an inescapable part of building a big tent movement.
Sometimes we'll have hard conversations, but I believe in our potential as a movement, and I'm not going to turn back on this mission of an intersectional women's movement.
Organizers say a decline in participation is inevitable 3 years after that first historic march, but they point to the results of the 2018 midterms as proof that women across the country are engaged, evidence that the spirit of the march remains strong. Alex Wagner, CBS News, New York.
And down in Cody, Wyoming, supporters will take to the streets in the city's own Women's March for those who can't make it to D.C.
But coming up in tonight's 10 o'clock news, food recalls are becoming more common and dangerous. We'll take a look at the latest study.
Plus, this sports team in Great Falls is hitting the keyboards for its training sessions.
And Scott is also going to show us who holds court tonight in a battle between West and Skyview.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.